I'd like to ask who inspired you to begin your art? Was it a relative? Was it a teacher? Was it a member of the family? Was it a reaction to circumstances? And we know who you are, so we can take you in order, or you can just pop up and answer. But yes, if each of you would share that with the audience and maybe stand or come to the microphone.
And the rest of you can come up with me too. Come on, come on, because they want to hear from you. I'll just add that I'll start. It was a teacher. It was a teacher. As a young boy, had other thoughts like most of the kids in the neighborhood, about playing baseball. That's what I was dreaming. But it wasn't until I got to high school and at 15 that my teacher told me that I had a talent. That the homework assignment to her wasn't just an assignment. She thought it was worthy of being published. She thought I can do that. So, and she always encouraged me. So that's why I started.
I guess writing always just was the natural way that I had expressed myself once I learned how to do it. Because I was always one of those kids that had like journals and diaries and stuff like that. But I've been blessed throughout my schooling life, even though I am a multiple high school dropout, to always have that English teacher that like pushed me to like continue like actually getting better at writing itself. And then eventually, once I hit community college, I had a professor that like pushed me to start publishing while everybody else in undergrad was scared to. So that like it's just been a succession of teachers that have always like have been helping to nurture my love of writing. So I would say it's like it's a community thing, I guess.
Yeah, shout out to the lineage of folks that held space. I think going back to the very, very beginning though, it's got to be the coolest person in the world to little me, who was my uncle Gemino, who was like my big bro. I remember, through him I encountered hip hop and tried to do my really, really bad freestyles like songs, but that put me on the path for sure. So shout out to Uncle Gemino and his red boombox.
Um, I wrote a lot as a kid. I had journals and journals of poetry. And then when I was 9, my paternal grandfather passed away, and I wrote a poem about him. And that was the last poem I wrote literally until like a year ago. I've always been a storyteller. And interestingly, my writing was never my voice. I feel like I learned how to write the way I describe it. Like white people, is how I would describe it. And it never resonated with how I spoke. And so it's been a real journey to bring those together. And I've had lots of collaborative writing partners. So it's part of the reason I wanted to do a piece with multiple voices. I write and people respond, and then we weave and tuck and put these pieces together. So it's just been a journey of figuring out my voice, which does feel like a voice that is reflected back. So it feels more spoken, but I feel like I'm finally learning how to get it in the written form.
I will add, like slowly I was saying, similarly, my teacher taught me the mechanics of how to write, but it was listening to my grandmother tell stories at night as we were falling in the bed and talking about Nicaragua and talking about my mother as a little girl and all the family members, and like listening to the folks in the kitchen at parties telling their stories and telling their jokes. And it was always all this, there's this oral history, right? Culturally it come from that oral storytelling that I didn't know is what I already had inside of me, and then allowed me to create these narratives. So there was the learning how to write technically, and then realizing that I had this narrative voice with me all along because of what I was getting every single day in my life growing up. Telling you, I got the food, you can hear the music from the kitchen, and then it's the good thing, everyone's laughing, right? And as a kid, like, man, why are they laughing? Let me go find out why they're laughing. Anybody else?
was gonna hold it for you.
I have one if no one does. I'm curious, kind of building off what you said, miakoda, if you guys feel like you've lost something when society shut down and like at the start of COVID and through the subsequent year or so, and if there's something that you want to do differently as a result of that experience, feel free to let us know how it's going.
Somebody wants to start since I've started twice. Anybody?
So I had I don't know how to word this well. COVID was actually like the whole shutdown and everything. Like, yes, it was a very like emotionally taxing like experience, and all the negatives. But it was actually kind of a rebirth era for me, because that's when I started getting more serious about writing. Because like the whole world kind of turned off, and I was stuck like not like participating in like things I was told that I had to do. Like at the time, I think I was 22. I was barely going to turn 23. I'm 26 now. And I was in community college, and like after just getting my GED and all that sorted out, and like the last couple, basically my whole life was school and trying to get my life back on track after having a very rough earlier part of my life. And then once the shutdown happened, I kind of just said, fuck it, I'm going to do whatever I want, which I was already kind of doing, but in a like, okay, I'm going to follow this path that means that like I'm going to do what I'm expected to do, which is, you go to school, you get a good job, you do this, that, and the other thing. And then I was like, I'm still kind of doing that, but it's online and I have all this time and I can't see my friends. So I'm just going to dive into poetry. I'm going to do all these submissions, read more, do like this, that, and the other, get better. And now I'm here, I'm in the Bay. There's so many like different steps from that initial decision to get more serious about it while all the shutdown was happening that led me to a space like this and meeting people like Norman. I don't know if y'all know Josiah, but he was here for like 5 minutes. The people at Medicine for Nightmares, like all these like different people that I was able to meet through that decision, because the world got turned off for a couple years. So yeah.
In 2019, I went to a conference, the community of writers. That summer, I spent a week with a gang of other writers, and I met people, and I got an opportunity to, put together a manuscript. And lo and behold, everything shuts down. So I leaned into writing. I put out 130,000 words that year, and it felt fantastic because I'm a public school teacher. So obligation and responsibility, that job consumes you. And it's consuming for a long, long time. So to have that time is where I'm just like, you know what, I'm gonna write like the way I did when I was young, and I was writing from 11 to 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm gonna write. All I had is time, and I'm gonna write, and I'm gonna write. And that's what I did.
What a question. What did I lose? I think that the first couple of years of the pandemic, I was very much in the mode of like, hold it all together. Like what new opportunities present themselves. Working for an organization too, where like working with young folks, the fly thing that we realized very quickly is when we started putting like our writing workshops online, they were suddenly not just young folks in Oakland, in the Mission in San Francisco, but we had young folks from like Jamaica, like Vietnam, like I'll never forget, I think Rassan tuning in 4 o'clock in the morning, her time in Lebanon, just to get down, where it was suddenly, this space to have access to. And that was hella exciting. So it felt like like so much connection. Like I got to be doing like little poetry shows, like with folks like, on the East Coast that like otherwise I had that feeling of like, oh man, like wish it could be there. And suddenly we're all here. I think in the last year though, it's for sure been so many lessons and so much loss, like straight up just family grief, losing loved ones. And so it's been a season of transitions. And Yeah, it's so interesting. Like thinking, I'm like, oh man, what did you lose as a poet, as an artist? And I think just I'm very much in the season of like, what have I lost as a person? And but definitely coming out of the season, really grateful for spaces like this and a new orientation towards time and work and life and love and all of the excitement that brings with it too. Um, yeah. I was not writing for a while in my trying to hold the world together, but I'm writing now. It feels great.
Um, the the lockdown in the Bay Area coincided with the third month of Buzel's life. So literally the day I was supposed to slowly start coming back to work. It's beautiful, love. Was literally the day shelter in place started, and prior to that, I did in-person facilitation that was very embodied, very interactive, very participatory. I had a lot of stuff planned, nicely spaced out, so I could slowly transition back as a parent, and it was gone. And I expected becoming a parent to be disorienting. I so I didn't know how much of it was that I was a parent and how much of it was the pandemic. I was like, I don't know what's happening. It's all spinning. But what I was doing in the world, I couldn't do. My work is it's very evocative. And it didn't feel safe for me to be doing that on Zoom. So I literally didn't have the sleep capacity to rethink what I was going to do. And that moment coincided with me reading a book. That's what I was looking up. I was not checking messages, anybody, in case you were wondering. The Red Deal by the Red Nation, the Red Deal, Indigenous Action to Save Our Earth. And at the end, they share a lot of ways that we can be part of that. And one of the things that they invite at the end is put pen to paper. Just what did this inspire? And it inspired a piece of writing that was mentioned in my intro called Jedi 2.0, the Jedi 2.0 invocation. And it's really a call to action for how I think that the diversity and inclusion field is so deeply fraught with problems, and how it has to shift itself from a industry into a movement, and work collectively rather than competitively as we pursue ambitious change. And so I started writing, what does that mean? What does that look like? What does that feel like? What does that call from us? And it's kind of never stopped. Just the what I feel like I lost was, and I don't know if it was pandemic or it was becoming a parent, but I let go of anything that made me see and speak less than the truth that was coming through. Yeah. Thanks for the question.
So I just invite you all to give it up again for tonight's features. Thank you guys.